Welcome back to the Latam MedTech Leaders Podcast. Today, our guest is Oscar Segurado. Hey, Oscar, how are you doing today? It's great to have you in the show.
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me today.
Fantastic, Oscar. It's really an honor to have you here today. And well, listeners, Oscar is an executive veteran of the biopharmaceutical industry with extensive global leadership experience in translational science, clinical development, and medical affairs. Oscar is now the Chief Medical Officer for ASC Therapeutics. Before that, he was the Chief Medical Officer for Symvivo, or Vivo, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, Myriad Genetics, and CellMax Life, Vice President for Becton Dickinson, and Global Medical Head for Abbott, AbbVie, right?
Yes.
How do you pronounce it?
AbbVie, yes.
AbbVie, I'm sorry. Abbott, AbbVie. Oscar is a senior medical leader experienced in matrixed line management and consulting for biotechs, midsize, and large pharma companies. He has extensive expertise in gene therapy, immuno-oncology, immunotherapy, genomics, and protein cell diagnostics, predominantly focused on oncology, hematology, and autoimmunity, including personalized medicine, molecular, and cellular biomarkers. Oscar holds a tenured Professorship of Immunology at the University of Lyon, Spain. He received his Ph.D. from the University of Wuerzburg. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, in Germany. And his medical degree from the University of Salamanca, Spain. So, Oscar, that's quite a bio that you have. I also understand you wrote a book. Is that correct?
Yes, I wrote a book. It's in Amazon. Just put my name and write a very nice review about it.
Well,
that's what I tell everyone.
What's the book about? What's the title?
The book is about something very relevant today, and this is how to deal with anxiety.
Okay.
And people may have heard about something called mindfulness, yes, which is being, as I am right now, in the present moment. And I tried different techniques and practices, and I decided to develop my own. And that's what it's all about. It's called mindful framing. Transform your anxiety into vital energy.
Fantastic, Oscar. All right, so
let's
get started. Sure. Let's get started with your journey to Latin America. You are originally from Spain. How do you get involved with Latin America in your professional and personal life?
Yeah, so when you read my bio, I was thinking, okay, I should have written something about my experience with Latin America and what I was doing in the medical devices space. I almost forgot that. So I've been more than a couple of decades around. And my history on Latin America is, I would say, part of my development as a person and also as a business person. And everything started obviously in Spain. So I was born and raised in Spain. I went to medical school there, and I started noticing that I wanted to be something more than a physician. I went and I transformed into something I would call physician scientist. So I started working in immunology. And when you work in immunology, you do molecular biology, cellular biology, protein biology, working with autoimmune diseases, cancer immunology. I did that for about 10 years. And I started focusing on biomarkers because I thought that was important, what is today we call personalized medicine. So I after my 10 years and obtaining a tenure in immunology at the University of León, I because of my interest in languages, I moved to Germany, where I met my wife, and I started working with Abbott laboratories, and that was in 1993. So I spent 7 years working as a physician scientist in what slowly I realized was medical affairs. And medical affairs is something that is a kind of mix between medical or R&D type of work in companies, plus getting very close to the salespeople. So in my 7 years in Wiesbaden, very close to Frankfurt in Germany, at the European headquarters for Abbott, I started getting closer and closer to sales, and and I ended up in the last years there working for the diagnostics division in a position that at that time was called business development, but was going very close to the sales and the marketing organizations. And I got a headhunter from the Chicago organization, the headquarters of Abbott in worldwide, and they invited me to apply for a position as marketing director for Latin America and Canada. And it was the year 2000, so this is about 20 years ago. So I said, okay, I asked my wife and I took my kids and we moved to Chicago. So I was in the headquarters of Chicago, but running Latin America as marketing director for the diagnostics division. That's how everything started. And from there, I moved after about 1 year to be general manager with P&L responsibility for the diabetes division of inside Abbott Diagnostics. And that's when I started my Latin American career. So I had responsibility for all Latin America and Canada for a couple of years.
Fantastic, Oscar. That's quite a journey, huh? Interesting. Well,
it was a journey.
Yeah. All right. Moving along here, what major trends, epidemiological, political, social, economical trends do you see in Latin America that are relevant to our discussion today?
So I want to emphasize that I was working 100% with Latin America 20 years ago, and but I must say that when I continue looking into that and when I see how Latin America is evolving, there are still many key parameters that haven't changed. I would say that first of all is a region of the world that is usually considered third world, although there are countries and especially hot spots like big cities in Mexico City or Rio or Buenos Aires, which are really first world when you are there. And I traveled all around Latin America in that position. And I was very impressed about, again, the level and the quality of the people in universities, in the industry, with my organization, because I had general managers across the region. So I had the opportunity to deal with very, very smart people. And I think that like in everywhere in the world, you have, again, high quality, very talented people in Latin America. What happens is that definitely that the entire country, the entire countries are again, underdeveloped. There is poverty. There is a number of things that are very important there that you don't see in developed countries. And this also drives the way a company has to work in these countries. Definitely, and you need to take into account that although we talk about Latin America in general, this is a collection of countries that are very different. I think that's obvious. But I've also been working with Asia Pacific countries. And really in Asia Pacific countries, you see the diversity is even larger. So there is nothing that unifies them. But in Latin America, and I'm sorry to say that because I'm originally from Spain, there is this culture that came originally from Spain and Portugal. There's the language, the Spanish and Portuguese. So this brings these countries together and brings their certain type of homogeneity. So is something that for me makes sense to have a Latin America strategy, which also is embedded in the culture of the actual people, which impacts economics, epidemiology, politics, sociology. So that would be my first kind of high level view about Latin.
Great, Oscar. Interesting. All right. So let's discuss topics related to human research, commercialization of medical technologies. What do you see in Latin America that makes it attractive for companies to either do research or to sell their innovation?
So, first of all, I think Latin America is a marketplace, like everywhere where healthcare is becoming a larger piece of the entire economic movement. All countries are now realizing that healthcare is going to drive the way economies are going to be successful or not, especially in this coronavirus environment. People think that having a healthcare infrastructure, public health also, ready for the next one, or just tackling with where we are, is extraordinarily important. So I think that we need to understand that because of the economic and political situation, and especially the way the societies are dealing today with this pandemic, they are going to need more and more support from companies, and it has to be really cost effective. So companies have to be careful to try to bring to these markets innovative products that are not going to make it, because there are sometimes there are pockets of society that will be able to afford them, and I was very aware during my time there about these private organizations that, again, it happens especially in big cities, but the majority of the population are not going to be able to access that. These countries are driven by tender business. It means that there is lots of competition, and it's a lot about price. And sometimes quality of the product is secondary to having price. Now, working with each country individually means that we cannot, as a company or a big pharma or big medtech company, it's not easy to just arrive there and start to use their go-to-market strategies that they're used to do anyway. So this is a very price-sensitive market, and you need a very concrete marketing strategies and tactics that really also help demand generation.
Oscar, what about clinical research? Have you ever been involved with clinical trials in Latin America?
I have. So I told you what I was doing between 2000 and 2002, and maybe I have to continue going a little bit what has happened over the past 18 years.
Okay.
And this is that I moved. The reason I always say Abbott AbbVie, because I spent altogether 15 years with the same organization, is that AbbVie decided to buy one of the first biologics at that time, which is Humira. Is a TNF inhibitor used for rheumatoid arthritis and many other diseases. And I moved from being general manager for Latin America to start working worldwide as a medical affairs director, one of the first for Humira, the Humira team, which is a worldwide franchise, obviously. And I was also working again with the Latin American organizations, but now in a different position. Now I moved from diabetes to biologics. And I was, again, traveling around. I was working with many clinical organizations there, and this time from the pharmaceutical perspective. And you're Colombian, and I between among the countries that I visited, I remember being in Bogota. I don't remember exactly the name of your top university there. Which one is it?
Could be Javeriana or Los Andes.
Javeriana, exactly. Javeriana was that. And I remember spending one day visiting physicians and opinion leaders there, and I was really impressed. So This is one example of one place where I felt like I was in Berlin, or I was in Washington, anywhere, because the level of know-how of the people at the University of Javeriana was really good, and we could conduct trials there like anywhere in the world. So that was for me kind of a wake-up call, telling me that indeed is an opportunity to conduct clinical trials, which at the end of the day, obviously, because you can access patients in that are the same, have the same type of conditions that they can have anywhere. You can have your inclusion exclusion criteria and practically conduct the clinical trial like everywhere, where I felt really comfortable like doing that. So that was for me a discovery. And because of my expertise on Latin America, I continued all these years working on understanding the market in Latin America. I remember also going to Buenos Aires and speaking there with experts in rheumatologists. In that case, that was the area where I was focusing on, and seeing that they were people very keen, understanding perfectly how this immune therapy was working in these patients. And I'm talking about the beginnings, maybe 2005, 2006. So that was also for me a way to tell me that Latin America, and specifically different key places there, can be tremendously helpful to conduct clinical trials.
Yeah, Oscar, you're absolutely right with that. And I think you were referring to Hospital San Ignacio,
Yes, I
which is part
remember
of the
that one.
Universidad Javeriana.
Yes, I was there. Yes.
Yes, we are working on two. Well, we're working one clinical trial years ago, and now we're working that hospital in another trial. It's quite an institution, a top institution in Latin America and also in Colombia.
It is.
All right, moving along here, Oscar. In what specific countries in Latin America have you been involved with?
So I've been involved with all countries because my responsibility was in those two positions that I mentioned, as or three, I would say: director, marketing director for the diagnostics, general manager for diabetes, medical affairs head for the rheumatology space in AbbVie now, or Abbott. And also I had another responsibility later on when I moved from Abbott to Becton Dickinson, and I was responsible for the leukemia and lymphoma biomarkers, which is flow cytometry or cellular markers, and I spent 4 years as vice president for medical affairs worldwide. And I always had this kind of tendency to try to help and to bring value in Latin America. So in all these 4 positions, I was working across the board on all countries. So the way I've divided in my mind Latin America is in 4 major regions. One is Mexico, with some satellite countries like Honduras or Nicaragua or El Salvador. And another one, definitely on its own, is Brazil. Another one is Argentina or Uruguay, Paraguay, Chile. And finally, Colombia, what I call Great Colombia, which would include potentially Peru and Ecuador. So I was seeing these 4 regions within Latin America as one way for someone working very far away, like me in Chicago or in the Bay Area where I am right now, with worldwide responsibility with Latin America. That's the way I was seeing that, and I think that each of these regions have certain peculiarities that need you to take them differently, and sometimes some organizations have even headquarters that basically lead the organizations. I remember, for instance, that for Colombia itself, and would include, I forgot Venezuela, obviously, which is around. you would have a kind of hub there, and then you sometimes had distributors in these other countries. I would say Colombia and Venezuela, at least at that time, were very strong, and in both we had actual organizations, not distributors. But the same would happen with Mexico. You would have in Mexico City your big hub, and then distributors in the other countries. The same for sometimes even Argentina, and then having a distributor for Chile or Uruguay, Paraguay. So I don't know if that's helpful, but again, I'm trying to tell you the way I simplify things in my mind, so I can be more effective in my job.
Yeah, it's very helpful. All right, so let's talk a little bit about regulatory affairs in Latin America, Oscar. What's been your experience obtaining regulatory approvals for either clinical research or commercialized medical products?
So this is not an area where I was directly involved. So especially when you work with large organizations, you have regulatory people that deal with that. I can give you a very high level understanding that I have about the regulatory environment and in Latin America, and this is that is very it follows really the US FDA guidance. So that's my understanding, and I don't think I can tell you much more than that. Some countries, I think that my impression, my recollection of those years is that regulatory was not a real barrier. So basically, the regulatory requirements, especially once you had an FDA-approved product, were relatively easy. That's when the problem started. And this was market access, reimbursement, and so on. So it was the easy one to get over the regulatory humps. But from there, that's when I remember that we needed a real, very strong strategy, experts that really knew how to move inside all these very complicated network of relationships and things that are very important in these countries.
Excellent, Oscar. All right, makes sense. So what about distributors? How were you guys able to find and conduct due diligence on distributors in Latin?
Yeah, this is critical in Latin America. And I would come back to what I just said a moment ago. So you have big countries where, in general, you don't need distributors. In general, I'm saying, or sometimes you have a mix. And I recall, for instance, in Mexico, you would say, okay, Mexico, you can have your organization. We had our organization, but we were told clearly, and I'm thinking now about the time when I was working with the diabetes division, that you needed distributors for certain regions within Mexico. So that's something that you sometimes are not do not realize, but they also have certain tenders where in certain and sometimes is, and I don't recall exactly how what was it called, but is the army is they have a separate kind of healthcare organization. Unless you are an insider in there, is going to be very difficult to even be able to understand, to be aware when the tenders are coming and so on. So you may need a distributor just addressing the army or the military healthcare system. That's one example that I recall right now. And I think that was something similar in some other big countries. But the one that really called my attention was Mexico for that. And when you talk about distributors, I would say one thing, and it may sound a little bit kind of, is that so? And this is ethics. So we need to realize that in these countries there is a relatively low bar, and again, I don't think that has changed a lot based on everything I am aware of in the past 2 decades. But integrity, ethics, considering that there is some level of corruption in these countries, means that you have to do a very, very thorough due diligence when you start hiring a distributor. So it's very important to ensure that you have someone that is not going to get you in trouble. And I've been working with big corporations, American corporations, and I can tell you we had troubles. I was general manager and I had problems with that. And there are different countries, there are different situations. I would say maybe Argentina is a little bit less prone to that, and this area, maybe Brazil a little bit less, but especially the Mexico area, and that would include all other countries around there. Even Venezuela, I remember. I don't recall Colombia if that was a big problem, but this is something that you need to take into account, because that may mean even that your entire business is in jeopardy if you don't do that. So, but yes, you need to understand when you need a distributor and when you go direct in a country.
Okay, yeah, well said, Oscar. That's certainly an issue. Searching and finding distributors is really an art. It's like a chess game.
It is.
Yeah, and I see a lot of companies that take it very lightly. They just find a distributor at a trade show, or they just meet a distributor on LinkedIn, and they sign an exclusive agreement for 3 years, 5 years with that distributor.
Oh my God.
And they haven't even visited the country. I mean, that happens a lot. And I also think that a lot of companies in the US and Europe, they have a more opportunistic approach to Latin America. In other words, they are not actively pursuing business in the region. They're just waiting for somebody to contact them from Colombia, from Peru, from Chile, saying, I'm a distributor, I'd like to sell your products. Can we do business? And then they react and ship products, sign a contract, ship products, get paid, and that's it. And wait for the distributor to do some magic and for something to happen. I don't think that's the best way to manage such a large region with 30-something countries. That's over 600 million people, with big markets as Brazil, Mexico, Colombia. I will say that the company, I mean, and that's okay if you don't have your focus in Latin America, but that is becoming a region that it should be seriously considered as an opportunity. That's how I see things in the region, especially now that you have, for example, these trends, political trends and economic trends like the Pacific Alliance. You have all these countries joining the OECD in Latin America. So it's becoming a more sophisticated area, specifically with this trade bloc that I just mentioned,
Yes.
the Pacific Alliance, Mexico, Colombia, Peru, and Chile. They're all members of the OECD. They follow international guidelines. They have treaties with the US, Europe, etc. So I think it's an area that is worth paying attention to now.
It is. I agree.
All right, so let's move along here. Let's talk about demand generation. You were talking about distributors and working with them. Let's continue a little more on that topic, Oscar. How was your involvement with demand generation with distributors? Any marketing strategies that you remember? What were you guys doing to help the distributor sell and to have patients demand your products?
So this is key for any business to have demand generation. But we are talking about healthcare, so in some way you are going to be more dependent on whatever needs are in the healthcare system and whatever is available through the tender business. But I work for a couple of years, as I mentioned, with the diabetes monitoring business, which they are sold in pharmacies, and they are bought directly, sometimes out of pocket, by patients. at least at that time. So you need to buy the diabetes monitors and also the strips. And we by the way, that's interesting. I hired one guy in while I was general manager in Brazil. His name is Robert Ford, and he was my marketing manager for Latin America. Guess what? He was named on the 1st of June of this year CEO of Abbott Laboratories. Oh, he runs the entire thing, 80,000 people, and he's a good friend. So we work together on marketing strategies for diabetes in Latin America. And what we did was something very simple. We prepared one marketing strategy for the entire Latin America. We prepared all the basic elements, and then we send them to the countries so that they could adapt that to their individual needs. And guess what? It worked. So we both were very successful with that strategy, and some people use that more than others, but we prepared the entire marketing materials, everything from the visuals to the text. It was translated. We provide them already translated into Portuguese, and the countries were able to really use those materials and adapt them. They told us clearly, you guys are in Chicago, you have no idea how it works here in Latin America, although I had a Brazilian working with me. But they wanted these kind of basic elements and then rework with them and use them in different ways. So we went with those materials that were directed really to over-the-counter in pharmacies more than anything else. And we were able to deploy that as a Latin America-wide type of strategy. So that's one example how you can use some strategies. And again, I'm giving you that example. Probably other people have other type of example. And how it can work. And that's also the advantage, again, of some cultural similarities or homogeneity that you can see in Latin America.
Excellent, Oscar. All right. So let's talk about price sensitivity in the region. You mentioned something at the beginning of the conversation, but do you want to expand a little bit more on that?
Yeah, it's obvious. So these are countries that are really struggling, and I don't think that things have changed a lot in the past years, because if anything, my impression, having been now in the United States for 20 years, is that the gap between developed countries, especially the US and other countries, is becoming larger and larger. So the cost that we have here on developing a product makes it sometimes not really profitable for a large company to develop to bring it to the market. So that was one of the key decisions that I continuously had when I was working in the headquarters, also with my boss and others. At that time, by the way, my boss for when I was general manager was Rick Gonzalez, and he's now the CEO of AbbVie. So I had a chance to know very interesting people at the time. And we had internal conversations just related to that. Which products should we bring to Latin America and which not? And even within our glucose monitors, we had one product, for instance, that was relatively expensive. It was point of care for hospitals. And I remember back and forth discussion, should we bring it to the market or not? And at the end, we decided not to. So it was a very innovative product that the decision was made. We are not going to, the effort to bring it to a relatively atomized market, because you need, as I said, is not just one marketing strategy. You can have an overarching strategy, but you need to adapt it. It's very expensive, and the product has also cost of goods. So you need to do all these calculations. So I think that some companies in India or in China probably are going to have a better potential to bring products in Latin America that are going to still be profitable for them because they have a lower cost of goods. But many companies in the medtech and pharmaceutical companies are probably either not bringing some products to those markets, or they are obviously practically making no money with those because I mean no profits, but they still bring products that they think that are relevant for the healthcare. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. All right, Oscar, let's talk a little bit about reimbursement. What's been your experience with reimbursement in all these countries?
Centralized, very centralized, and is at least in the areas where I was working, tender driven. So reimbursement is just making sure that you make it, that you get whatever price they tell you, but you cannot really do much in terms of being able to get the price that you're expecting. And sometimes you, again, as I mentioned, is exactly when you come into that point of market access and reimbursement, when you even decide to stop rolling out a product because it is not worthwhile. And sometimes you even have a distributor in between, which obviously has also their markup. So when you put all together, sometimes you decide, even in the last minute, that you are not going to bring a product to the market. So reimbursement is a key element on this decision making, and on what products you are bringing to the market, the way you price them, and so on. Because the tendency here, because it's a very price sensitive market, is that everyone is going to try to drop the prices and to put pressure. And sometimes the advantage of the tender business is that you have a defined period of time where price is set. That's the advantage. And this is okay. This is the price. I'm going to keep it until for 2 years. But the problem in this reimbursement process is that after 2 years, usually in healthcare, unfortunately, what happens is that prices are going up. Especially this is happening especially in the United States. The prices, especially drug prices, are going up, creeping up all the time. Is usually the contrary. So the next tender opportunity, the government or whatever institution is looking into that, is going to put an even lower ceiling, despite inflation and everything. So that's what happens in this cycle of tenders. So it's a very, very difficult business. And that's also why, coming back to the distributor aspect that we were talking a moment ago, is so important to be on top of certain aspects, like, for instance, the price. So because the distributor is going to sometimes try to get a business no matter what, and there is also lots of discussion with them. Okay, what is my ceiling? What is the price I can afford, so I can pay you, Mr. Distributor, and also make some profit. And sometimes this is something that makes all these discussions about price extraordinarily important. And you're going to spend, I remember I spent a lot of time just on that.
Okay. Well said, Oscar. It looks like you've gone through a lot in Latin America.
I did. It was very, very packed. It was 2 years and then the continuation with other businesses. But yes, I really treasure all these years because that was something different for me. Think that I'm a physician scientist, and that's what I'm coming back now. I'm doing gene therapy and stem cell therapy with a company with just uh, 20 people, and we, before, I was with another company with 80 people, and then he's working in different aspects. But those years in sales with a P&L responsibility were extraordinarily helpful for me, because now that I am in developing this therapy for hemophilia, for instance, the one we are developing, with is practically bringing a gene for factor VIII on patients that have this coagulation disorder. I am already thinking on how we are going to price this product in 4 years. That's when we plan to have our product in the market. And I'm talking about a product, for instance, and I'm sorry to diverge a little bit, but I'm telling you what is in my mind, that is probably going to cost for one single infusion between $1 and $2 million. That's where we are right now on gene therapy. So this is something that is going to change the entire way medicine is run. I call it medicine 2.0. But still, we may, in our case, with this product, we may have a chance in Latin America if we maybe reduce the price a little bit. But think that what this product is doing is that someone that needs to receive infusions every week 3 times, going to the hospital, is going to receive this one infusion and is going to be cured. So nothing else. They will not need anything else. Why? Because we have inserted a gene that is going to produce factor VIII regularly. And it's something that it's not only us, there are others already working in this space. So you see, it's very important to ensure that you understand the science and also where is it going to bring you and how is at the end of the day going to help a patient. And I think that's what I call, for me, being ambidextrous. So I have my capabilities on the science as a physician scientist, but also thanks to everything that I just mentioned, I understand also at the end of the day everything that we do needs to help a patient, and you also need to think about very simple stuff about reimbursement, pricing, demand generation, things like that, which help me make decisions now, being in a very small company and deciding that all the expenses, all the millions of dollars that we are spending in development are going to really translate into something that is going to help patients at an affordable or at the right cost. Sorry for this going around.
No, this is fantastic. This is absolutely fascinating, and I thank you for expanding a little bit more. I think it adds value to the discussion to listeners.
Thanks.
It's all good. All right, so we are about to enter into the closing remarks. Oscar, a question that I usually ask my guests here is Latin America a fun place to do business? What do you think about the culture and the way people do business in Latin America? I mean, do you like doing business, traveling in the region?
Oh my God, that was probably a blessing. That was probably the best thing about my job, because although I was in Chicago, by the way, is very well connected with Latin America, or sometimes we need to do that through Miami or something. But my trips to Latin America were unforgettable, all of them. Not just because you were going to great restaurants and you could be eating crickets in a Mexican restaurant, or going to Mr. Tango in Buenos Aires, or enjoying the beaches in Rio de Janeiro. always trying to find some time off. But the people there are really what make the difference. I mean, I remember I was when I when I was going to visit our company places all over the place. They had a kind of reception for me. They gave me a gift. It was like being the Pope. I'm being I'm being I'm being really treated like VIP
Awesome.
or something I was not used to. So I think that is fun. It is fun. Unfortunately, it's going to be a few years until we all can come back to those countries. But people there are also very careful with you in terms of safety, which sometimes is not easy in some countries. But yeah, it's a fun place, and especially for me, one of the most important things that has driven my entire career has been learning. And when I talk about learning, it's not just learning about business or medicine or science. It's learning about the culture and learning about people and understanding that this diversity is very important. And especially for me as a Spaniard, speaking the same language, although I had a couple of anecdotes that I cannot say here because we say things sometimes in Spanish that sound really bad in
I know.
in Latin American languages. This was a blessing for me.
Awesome.
Fun,
Oscar.
yes, it was fun.
I'm really glad to hear that. Okay. I also understand that you do private consulting engagements to companies that are looking into the areas that you specialize in: Latin American affairs, medical affairs, product development, and all that. So, the question I'm going to ask you is: you put in your hat of consultant. What would you say to the CEO of a medical device or biotechnology company that is looking at Latin America as a place to either conduct clinical research or to sell medical innovation?
Yeah, do your due diligence. Speak with people and ensure that you have someone that is on the ground, someone that really has the know-how and the experience. My experience with Latin America is limited. I do have a consulting firm. It's called medicaffairs.com, and I'm still doing some advisor work, although I have a full-time job right now as being one of the leaders of this biotech focus on gene and stem cell therapy. But it's important to spend time with those consultants. I've been doing consulting over the past 5 years. And I got this opportunity. I knew that something new is coming very quickly, and I needed to really dive into it. And that's why I decided to take this full-time job. But still, I have some time for support as an advisor, not as an actual consultant. Speaking with people like you, your organization, your expertise is absolutely essential to understand what are the specifics about Latin America, and ensuring that you really see how it fits with your needs, because organizations usually see the very simplistic approach of, I have here my product, I want to bring my product to Latin America, and they may even think that that's as easy as can be, and I use always Southeast Asia. It's not. So especially companies that are used and are coming from that region have the tendency to think that things are more well structured and rigorous. But Latin America is very, very special. And this needs to be understood, and you need to spend time, especially bringing people that know that region.
Okay, Oscar. Excellent. All right. Just before we sign off for today, Oscar, how can people get in contact with you? Email address,
the
website?
best place is this website is called medicaffairs.com. There you have a way to get in touch with me, or just oscar.segurado@medicaffairs.com. That's the easiest way to do that.
Okay, LinkedIn as well. You are active.
And in LinkedIn, anyone that wants also to be in my network, I'm happy to.
Excellent, Oscar. Thank you so much for being a guest in our show today. It was an enjoyable conversation. You have so much experience in the region that you are really a wealth of information, knowledge.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed this conversation with you, Julio.
Thank you, Oscar. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.